Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into something that's really changing the game on grocery shelves and, well, in our kitchens too. We're talking about the global organic food and beverages market.
That's right.
Our mission today is to unpack a pretty detailed forecast report from Cognitive Market Research. We want to understand what these numbers really mean for consumer choices, worldwide. And honestly, some of these growth figures are, well, they're pretty staggering.
They really are. And it's crucial to remember these aren't just abstract figures on a page. They signal some, pretty profound shifts in what people prioritize when they buy food, how farming is evolving. It's a major economic trend.
Definitely. Okay, so let's start with that big picture, the global snapshot. Where did things stand, say, back in 2021?
Right. So in 2021, the global market value was already quite impressive. We're looking at about $179 billion.
179 billion. Okay, substantial. But that's just the starting point, right?
Yeah.
Where does the forecast see it going?
Exactly. And this is where it gets really remarkable. That 179 billion, it's projected to shoot past 300 billion by 2025. And then, get this, it's expected to soar to over $842 billion by 2033.
Wow. 842 billion.
Yeah. And the engine behind that is a compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of nearly 14%, 13.764% to be precise.
Almost 14% CAGR. What does that actually signify for the market's momentum?
Well, a CAGR like that basically means the market size is, roughly speaking, doubling every 5 years or so. It shows this isn't just a quick blip or a fad, it's sustained, powerful growth, a fundamental shift.
Right. So thinking about you, our listener, what does that translate to? Does it mean we're going to see organic options just, well, everywhere, moving from the specialty aisle to being maybe the standard choice?
It certainly points in that direction. That kind of expansion suggests much wider availability and likely more competitive pricing, too, eventually.
Okay, let's break that down a bit. Where is this organic revolution really taking hold? Which regions were the big players back in 2021?
Well, North America was definitely leading the pack in 2021. It held the largest share. We're talking about a market value there of around $71.6 billion.
Okay, 71 billion. And the projection for North America?
It's projected to grow massively, reaching over $325 billion by 2033. That keeps it growing at a really
Right.
strong clip, about 13.4% CAGR. And that reflects, not just people being more health conscious, but organic stuff just being easier to find now. Mainstream supermarkets, not just specialty stores.
Yeah, availability makes a huge difference. And within North America, I assume the U.S. is the dominant force.
Oh, absolutely. The U.S. accounted for something like 58 billion of that initial 71 billion back in 2021, and it's projected to hit almost 260 billion by 2033, growing at just over 13% CAGR.
Still very strong. But what about Canada and Mexico?
Canada's growth is actually projected to be even faster in percentage terms. We're seeing a CAGR forecast of nearly 15% there, going from about 7.8 billion up to nearly 39 billion. Mexico showing really consistent growth too, around 13.9% TAGR, moving from about 5.5 billion towards 27 billion. So yeah, it's definitely a continent-wide thing.
Okay, interesting. Let's hop across the pond to Europe, another huge market, right?
Definitely. Europe was the second largest market in 2021, started at around $51.6 billion. And it's also on a strong upward path, expected to hit about $234 billion by 2033.
Right.
The TAGR there is very similar to North America, just under 13.4%.
And is the growth pattern similar across European countries, or are there standouts?
It's actually quite varied, which is interesting. You have the big economies naturally playing a huge role. Germany, for instance, starting around 8 billion, projected to reach over 35 billion. That's a solid 12.7% CAGR.
Okay.
But then you look at France is showing really remarkable acceleration. Its CAGR is predicted to be over 14%, starting smaller than Germany, around 6.5 billion, but growing towards 32 billion.
So France is really picking up steam. What about the UK, Italy, others?
Yeah, the UK is growing steadily too, around 12.5% CAGR from about 6.7 billion towards 28 billion. Italy's actually got a strong CAGR, over 13.8%, growing from 3.7 billion to over 17 billion. Russia also shows solid growth, similar to Germany's rate. Spain's growing consistently too, over 12% CAGR. And even, smaller markets known for being quite eco-conscious. Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, they're all posting steady double-digit growth, mostly between 11 and 12%.
Seems widespread then.
It really is. And one fascinating point, the category labeled Rest of Europe, which lumps together many other nations, actually shows the highest CAGR in the entire region, over 15%. It suggests this trend is really permeating everywhere, not just the biggest economies.
Wow, okay, so North America and Europe are established but still growing fast.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something earlier, Asia Pacific. This is where it gets really interesting, you said. The highest overall growth rate.
That's the one. Yeah, Asia Pacific is projected to have the highest regional CAGR overall. We're talking 15.1%. Starting from around 33.5 billion in 2021, it's forecast to explode to over 176 billion by 2033.
176 billion from 33 billion. That's huge. What's driving that acceleration?
It seems to be a combination of factors. You've got a rapidly growing middle class with more disposable income, certainly, plus a significant increase in awareness around food safety and quality health benefits, and supply chains are improving, making organic products just more accessible.
Makes sense. Which countries are leading the charge there?
Well, China is a massive part of it, obviously. Starting near 10 billion, projected to hit almost 50 billion, with a strong CAGR around 14.6%. Japan is another key player, very similar growth rate actually, moving from about 6.7 billion towards 34 billion.
Okay, China and Japan are major forces, but didn't the report highlight India specifically?
Yes, absolutely. India stands out with the highest KGR forecast within Asia Pacific and one of the highest globally, actually, just shy of 16%. It's predicted to grow from around 4.7 billion to nearly 27 billion. That's a really significant jump, indicating a rapidly emerging market there.
Incredible. Any other hotspots in the region?
Definitely. South Korea, Australia, Singapore, they all show really strong double-digit KGRs, around 15.7%. And Southeast Asia as a block and Taiwan, too, are both projected above 15.5% growth. It really is a region-wide surge.
Okay, phenomenal growth in Asia Pacific. Let's move south now to South America. What's the picture there?
South America is also showing very strong growth, forecast at nearly 15%, CAGR 14.9% to be exact. It started at around $12 billion in 2021 and is expected to reach almost $65 billion by 2033.
Almost 15% growth. Who are the main players?
Brazil is the largest market by far, starting at about 3.7 billion and projected to near 19 billion, growing at about 14.5% CAGR. But Argentina actually shows even faster percentage growth, predicted at over 15.4 percentage growth, growing from 1.7 billion towards 9.4 billion.
So Brazil's the biggest, Argentina's growing fastest. Others?
Yeah, countries like Colombia, Peru, and Chile are all showing very consistent, strong growth as well, mostly in the 13.7% to 14.3% CAGR range. So again, a widespread trend across the continent, likely linked to economic development and that growing health awareness.
Right. Okay, two more regions to touch on briefly. The Middle East.
The Middle East is smaller, starting around $7 billion in 2021, but it's still projected to grow significantly. Forecasted to reach nearly 27 billion by 2033, which is a solid CAGR of over 12%. Saudi Arabia is the lead market there, expected to grow from 2.5 billion to over 9 billion.
And other countries.
Turkey, the UAE, Egypt, Qatar, they're all showing decent double-digit growth forecasts too, so interest is definitely growing across the region.
Okay, and finally, Africa. The smallest market currently, I believe?
Yes, it started as the smallest, around $3.3 billion in 2021, but again, don't count it out. It's projected to grow to over $15 billion by 2033. That's still a very respectable CAGR of over 12.2%, more than quadrupling its size.
Where is that growth coming from mainly?
Nigeria and South Africa are noted as key contributors. And similar to Europe, the Rest Africa category actually shows strong growth, around 12.6% CAGR, suggesting it's taking root broadly, even if starting from a smaller base.
Okay, incredible. So we've toured the globe, seen massive growth figures everywhere. Let's try and synthesize this. What's the real bottom line here for someone listening, someone trying to grasp these global shifts?
Well, I think the main takeaway is crystal clear. The organic food and beverage market isn't just experiencing a bit of growth, it's undergoing a massive, sustained, and truly global expansion. We're seeing consistent, strong, double-digit growth rates practically everywhere. From the established large markets like North America and Europe,
Right.
to these incredibly rapidly accelerating markets, especially in Asia Pacific, but also South America, it points to a really fundamental and probably lasting shift in what consumers around the world want and how the food industry is responding. It's moved far beyond being just a niche.
Absolutely. It
Yeah,
feels like a genuine transformation from what maybe felt like a bit of a fringe interest, a decade or two ago,
exactly.
to becoming this huge multi-billion-dollar global industry that's on track to approach, what, almost $1 trillion within the next 10 years.
Yeah.
That scale is just,
Wow.
it really is a paradigm shift in the food sector.
So, recapping this deep dive using the Cognitive Market Research Report, we've charted an amazing growth path for organic food and drinks. From 179 billion just a few years ago, rocketing towards over 840 billion globally by 2033. We've seen specific regions like Asia Pacific growing at lightning speed alongside continued strong expansion everywhere else. It really paints a picture of a major ongoing change in how we think about food and drink. It does, and it leaves us with a really interesting question to ponder, doesn't it? Given these incredibly strong forecasts, this huge expansion, how is the continued growth of the organic market likely to influence the bigger conversations? Things like global food security, the push for more sustainable agriculture, even economic development in different parts of the world over the coming decade.
That's a great point. What are the wider ripple effects of millions more people choosing organic?
Exactly. It's something worth thinking about how these consumer choices might shape broader policy and agricultural practices globally.
A really important thought to leave you with. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the numbers powering the organic food revolution.
The way we eat and drink, it's changing so fast, isn't it? Our choices, what we pick up at the store every day, they're starting to say a lot more about, well, our deeper values, health, the planet, that sort of thing. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into the global organic food and beverages market. Our goal really is to help you cut through all the noise. We want to pull out the key takeaways, the important stuff about what's driving growth, what challenges this market faces, and the trends that are really shaping its future. This is all based on the latest insights from cognitive market research. Think of it as your quick guide to getting up to speed on this really dynamic and pretty crucial sector. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. What's actually fueling this big expansion in organic food and drinks? Why are so many people choosing organic now? What's the real driver?
It's fascinating, actually. And, well, at the heart of it, it seems to be this really strong consumer belief in the health benefits. The research, the data from cognitive market research, it shows that more than 60% of people buying organic are doing it mainly for health reasons. And it's not just a general feeling. It's pretty specific, wanting to avoid artificial chemicals, synthetic pesticides, GMOs, things people worry might not be great for their long-term health. We see this especially strongly with families and health-conscious folks really making wellness a priority.
Right, so it's very personal then. A direct investment in feeling better, staying healthy. But is it just about personal health? Or are people starting to think, bigger picture too, beyond their own dinner plate?
That's a great point. Because while personal health is definitely primary, environmental awareness is quickly becoming another huge driver. You see modern consumers, particularly younger generations, millennials and Gen Z, they're much more aware of their ecological footprint.
Yeah.
And organic products, they score points there because they promote things like, well, soil health, nurturing the living soil, not just using it in biodiversity, supporting more kinds of plants and animals. These practices tend to lead to lower pollution, so organic gets framed as a more sustainable choice compared to conventional farming.
Yeah.
It feels good personally and planet-wise.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But for something to shift from, that niche health food store vibe to being everywhere, it needs more than just belief, right? How did these products actually get onto mainstream shelves?
Ah, well, that's where mainstream retail availability really becomes a game changer, a truly transformative force. What used to be confined to maybe specialty health stores, often pricier,
Mhm.
maybe harder to find, it's now pretty commonplace. You see it in major supermarkets, hypermarkets, all over the world. And that wider distribution, it's pushed organic from a special section onto the regular aisles. It's an everyday option now. That really broadens the appeal, makes it accessible to way more people. It's sort of democratized organic, you could say, moving it from a niche thing to just another choice in your weekly shop. That's been key to the growth.
That accessibility factor, yeah, clearly huge. But okay, despite this growth, which is impressive, this is where it gets interesting for me. What are the big challenges? The restraints. Because it can't all be a smooth sailing, can it? Every boom hits some bumps.
You're absolutely right. There are definitely significant headwinds. The main challenge, I'd say, without a doubt, is the price. that premium cost. Organic stuff can easily cost, what, 20% to maybe even 100% more than the conventional equivalent? Now, there are reasons for that. It's not just arbitrary pricing. You've got lower yields often because you're not pushing growth with synthetics. Labor costs can be higher, more manual work sometimes, like weeding. And then there's the whole certification process, which costs money, rigorous standards. So that price difference, it becomes a real barrier for people watching their budgets. Right. Especially when inflation bites or the economy's shaky, it just prices some people out, even if they prefer organic.
So the very things that make it organic contribute to the higher cost.
Okay.
Okay.
And what about just getting it from the farm to the store, the logistics? Is that straightforward? Not always, no. That's another constraint. The organic supply chain isn't always as developed. Compared to conventional agriculture, organic farming faces, well, more logistical hurdles. Think about segregation. You have to keep organic completely separate from conventional in every single step. Farm, transport, processing. It prevents contamination, but adds complexity and cost. Production risks can also be higher sometimes, dealing with pests without the usual chemical toolkit. All of this makes it harder to scale up efficiently and keep prices stable. It affects availability and cost for us, the consumers. It's a tricky balance.
I can see that. And what about trust? I sometimes hear people wondering about the labels, like are they really getting what they pay for? Is consumer skepticism a factor?
It absolutely is. Label confusion, a bit of skepticism that's a real challenge. Many consumers, frankly, don't fully grasp all the different certifications, what organic guarantees versus, say, made with organic ingredients, or the newer labels like regenerative organic. And then you get questions like, is this extra cost really worth it? Plus, unfortunately, you sometimes see incidents of greenwashing, companies making slightly misleading claims about how green or organic their products are. That kind of thing can definitely erode trust and slow down adoption.
If people feel confused or misled, they might just stick with what they know.
That's critical, isn't it? Building and keeping that trust. But okay, the market isn't standing still. Despite the hurdles, what are some of the exciting trends? Things shaping the future, showing where organic is heading. Because innovation must be part of tackling those price and supply issues. Indeed. And there are some really interesting developments. One I find groundbreaking is the rise of regenerative organic farming. This approach, it really goes a step beyond the standard organic rules. It's not just about not using harmful stuff, it's about actively improving the ecosystem. So practices that actually restore soil health, boost that microbial life, improve water retention, and even pull carbon out of the atmosphere, helping fight climate change. Things like no-till farming, using cover crops. As brands start to adopt and really market these regenerative practices, it's becoming kind of the gold standard, the premium offering for the most eco-conscious consumers. It feels like the next evolution.
Wow. Okay, so moving beyond just doing no harm to actually doing good, that sounds powerful. But going back to that price issue, for organic to really hit the mainstream, affordability is key. How's the market tackling that?
Right. And a big part of the answer there is the growth of organic private label brands, store brands, essentially. You see the big retail chains launching their own organic lines, the supermarket's own brand of organic milk, pasta sauce, cereals, you name it. Because they control the whole process, they can often offer good quality organic products at lower prices than the big national organic brands. They cut out some intermediary costs, maybe spend less on big advertising campaigns. It makes a real difference in affordability and accessibility. It helps bring organic options to more everyday shoppers, even those on tighter budgets.
That makes sense. A practical way to lower the barrier. And are we seeing organic move beyond just, apples and carrots? What about other types of products? Because I'm always looking for convenient organic options, snacks maybe?
You're definitely not alone there. And yes, absolutely. We're seeing really rapid growth in categories like organic packaged snacks, things like chips, crackers, bars, also ready-to-eat meals, organic baby food, which is huge, and a whole range of organic beverages, from juices to alternative milks. The thing is, today's consumers want both convenience and wellness. They don't want to trade one for the other. So this new wave of organic innovation is meeting that demand, offering convenient options across a much wider spectrum of products. It's not just about fresh produce anymore. It's about stocking your whole pantry organically.
So, wrapping this up, what does it all mean for you listening and maybe for the future of food generally? We've seen, based on the cognitive market research data, that the global organic food and beverages market is really being shaped by, well, health priorities, eco-conscious thinking, and crucially, better access.
Exactly. And for the industry to really hit its full potential, it absolutely has to tackle those remaining hurdles. The price difference needs addressing, the supply chain needs to get more robust and efficient, and building or rebuilding consumer trust is paramount. Those are really foundational for sustained growth.
And if those challenges are met, well, organic might stop being just a trend or a niche. It could actually become the new normal, the global standard for food and drinks. What stands out to you about that possibility? Imagine a world where organic is the default, not the alternative. Something to think about.
We just definitely encourage you to keep exploring how your own choices play into these much bigger global shifts in how we eat.